All right. Hello and welcome to our 12th Conversation to Connect. Let's get real. Powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm CyndiONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector at Exceptional Connections since 2009. So this year we'll be celebrating 11 years. Whoop, whoop. Each week, I nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to be able to have a meaningful conversation with. And so be sure to get yourself a cup of tea or something yummy to drink and settle back and enjoy the conversation. I'm going to be having today with wonderful Morrison. Yay, we're so excited to have you. So take notes and feel free to write your questions in the chat line on the side. We'll be opening the conversation about the 45-minute mark. So the inspiration of our weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real talks is to create purposeful conversations. We desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times and to support our community to make an impact in the world and stay connected. So as I mentioned earlier, our Conversation to Connect this week is with wonderful Morrison from Bellevue, Washington. And her topic today is Unleash the Powerful Woman Within.
That includes you, Chuck.
That's right. So the subtopic is LeadHER, the essence of being a CEO of your business. So before I bring wonderful on with us today, it's my pleasure to share with you some background information about her and her amazing journey. So as a successful brick and mortar business owner, mom, and entrepreneur, wonderful Morrison has seen and overcome every roadblock imaginable in life, in business, and mindset. So there are many roads on the path to growth and success in business. Having made it to the top and lost it all, she has learned to master all of the challenges entrepreneurs face on a minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, and year by year basis. That's the truth. You've got to do it that way. You got to break it down, right? The uncertainty of the marketplace and the inconsistency of creating profits, the ever-changing landscape of technology, and the ever-evoking amount of information. But mostly, she's learned to master herself. And I'm so excited about this talk because she's going to be sharing her strategies with you to quiet the doubts and insecurities of not having all the answers and to surrender her ego. So to be absolutely certain that being a woman who chooses to be a business owner is a choice to serve others. And I love that. That's something that I value as well. Wonderful. She embraces the opportunity to give because entrepreneurship creates second chances. To support others because entrepreneurship brings communities together. We need that more than ever right now. And to rise above because entrepreneurship empowers women to challenge and change traditional roles. So without further ado, thank you, wonderful, for being on the call with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm elated, number one, because having known you now and having conversations with you, you're like an added amazingness into my life. And then you brought me a community that otherwise I would not have met through any other way but knowing you. And just that I'm so impressed that your entrepreneurship in terms of having ran an organization for 11 years, there's something to be said for long-term sustainable businesses, right? I mean, because businesses start every day, they don't last. I mean, I think the banks look at it from a 3-year standpoint,
right?
In terms of its survival. So you're doing something right, and you yourself as a human being is creating something amazing. So thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. So before we get going, I just want to set the stage here with this amazing, wonderful woman named Wonderful Morrison. You were named very aptly, but I just want to set the stage that in the midst of our COVID pandemic in 2020, is really when I had the opportunity to meet Wonderful. She came to one of my live networking events, and then we just have had chances along the way here to get to know each other via Zoom virtually. Can't wait till the happy day when we can actually be in each other's presence and enjoy time together.
Yeah.
But you had an inspiration, and I don't want to take us off track too much, but I think it's important. you know, you follow your heart, you follow your passion, you walk your talk. And I know that about you because you just finished a wonderful accomplishment, 30 days, 30 women, 30 minutes. So that was
Yes.
your May masterclass. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be and how you're feeling right now.
So I had, prior to anything online, I have been a brick and mortar owner, business owner from the time I was 22 up until about 3 years ago. And when I don't know if any of you have experienced a brick and mortar, but you're kind of isolated in the world that you have created, right? You rarely ever go outside of that unless it involves that business. So when I sold the business, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And the online world was like, oh, let's try something new, because risk is always something I am ready for. And I started this small community online to just because people kept asking me what it is that I do. And I thought, if I put them all in this one place, then I don't have to like have 8,000 conversations, different conversations. So 2 years in, there's all these women I'm meeting on there from all over the place. And one day I had this idea. I had just signed up for that masterclass that you see online all the time with Howard Schwartz and Anna Wintour. And I thought, oh, this is really fascinating. And I had just posted this thing that said, what could you talk about in 30 minutes without preparation? And like tons of women just, I could talk about this, I could talk about that. And some of it had nothing to do with the business they were doing. And I thought, gosh, we have a lot of experts already on this forum. Why not have our own masterclass, right? So then I just said, hey, I have this brilliant idea. Anybody want to be an expert in this 30-day masterclass every day for 30 minutes? And I got so much response from it that in the first 2 weeks of me saying that, the calendar was full, except for 2 days. And so it just happened because there was such a need for it, I guess. And what I've learned is, as entrepreneurs, the things we are not exempt from is being afraid, right? Or having doubts. That's part of our makeup. However, the women that got on there were really passionate about the struggle I went through and the business I created from the struggle.
Their journey.
And then boom, magic, right? It's like, because they are the expert in that field, because they went through the steps to get past their overcoming of whatever the situation is. So that we had makeup artists, we had hypnotherapists, we had accountants, there were bankers on there. I mean, it was like a plethora of variety of women in their expertise. It was really fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of being on there also, and I really appreciated the opportunity again to get to know you and share with your community. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a beautiful thing to witness and see, you know, because I'm doing once a week and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, every day for a month, that's a lot. So
I'm a naturally curious person. So for me, every day was like, oh, a new conversation with somebody I've never met. So it was fun. I also just want to throw out there, because I know it's a question everybody has when they first hear my name. Wonderful is my birth name. It is not something I came up with at one point in my life. My father named me. I'm the youngest of his 9 boys. So there's the story.
Wow. Long awaited, right?
Yes, pretty much.
Long awaited daughter. That's amazing. Well, I'm so thankful that you're on this call with us today. So before we enter into the discussion, unleashing the power, the powerful woman within, and again, we have some males on the line as well. So, you know, we can, just being the best human we can be, right?
Yes.
What do you think what is at the essence of being successful? What do successful people, in particular, because we're talking about women today, successful women have in common?
Well, what I've learned from my experience as an entrepreneur, my entire adult life, is the one of the commonalities, again, not trying to exclude males, right? One of the commonalities of women in success is nurture, right? We have a real innate ability to nurture anything we touch, anything we become a part of. And I think that itself has its own greatness in it that is sort of not seen in the corporate world, sort of, right? And in entrepreneurship, you can very much nurture something that you've created from nothing, or something you've purchased and created on your own.
Right.
So for me, nurture is a big part of it. And then the other is that it's not necessarily about multitasking, but it's multi-understanding. Right? Because biologically, multitasking has been kind of been studied as not a thing that humans can do on a regular, but multi-understanding is something I think women, because when you're raising multiple children, they're never the same, right? So you have to address them differently. And it's the same with clients and customers. You have to address each one separately. And again, it's something innately we already possess to understand the different varieties of humans and how they respond. So that's another piece that I think we have within us. And then the third piece is that we have, not to say that men don't see the big picture, but women naturally always see the big picture first, right? We're always looking at how we can bring everybody in to the big picture and make it more collaborative because of that nurture piece, right? So collaboration and nurture and having just a deeper understanding of how we all operate differently is what I've seen. And when I ran a business, it was my husband and I. And we made a really great team because he was very much a doer, right? He sees the problem, he solves the problem, we move on. And then I came from the piece of like, okay, let's see it from a bigger picture. How do we nurture this marketing piece? And then also, how do we, create listening from different levels? Because we had different ages of people that came into our program. So just knowing that a 10-year-old does not think like a 16-year-old and a 16-year-old doesn't think like a 50-year-old was where I came in to really bring it together.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. And I love the way you're really breaking it down in terms of giftings. And if, since you alluded to, men and women have different giftings, it's true. And your partnership with your husband in running your business was a beautiful example of how you were both using your gifts to balance each other and be able to meet the needs of your business. So I think that's something that is important for all of us in business, is to value each other in our community and what we have to offer, and be able to work with each other in a very synergistic way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that word, synergy. So
synergy is a great word. It is. It has energy in it and synchronicity in it and all those amazing words that, have us see possibility in whatever we do.
Absolutely.
So that's a great start to this conversation. And so you shared with me 3 empowering focuses that, you'd like to be able to focus on today and that you're passionate about. And so take us through those 3 empowering focuses and how they've helped you to be the wonderful, amazing woman you are today, as well as being able to support other, business owners in doing the same.
Thank you so much. So I've had these 3 guiding principles unknowingly most of my life. And then now that I can kind of concretely put it in words and then create the pillars of it, I'm starting to see, is that what was happening? So, which is kind of common in any entrepreneurship, right? You bring yourself to the table.
Yes.
And there's some parts of your business you're just excellent in. It's like magic for you. And there's other parts you're kind of like, what is this? Hence delegation and bringing other people into the fold, right? Creating a team.
Yes.
So for me, I really am a huge advocate for leadership but not necessarily the formal or informal in terms of corporate America or the corporate world, but more internal leadership, right? Because how do we lead others if we can't lead ourselves? And then, so we have to kind of look at ourselves and see. And the first place is personal strength, personal power, right? Because one of the things that I think is a big struggle as entrepreneurs is confidence. Confidence in what you're doing, confidence in that it's of value to someone else, confidence that you have moved in the right direction. Because the thing about a business is you've got a billion ideas. How do you capture all those ideas and create one synergistic path to create success? And I think that a lot of times we're always teeter-tottering. Great idea, kind of better idea, kind of okay idea on a day-to-day basis. And when you have really gained some personal strength and personal power, you can confidently say, you know what, I'm going to go this route, whether it turns out the way I want. This is the path I'm going to take. And I think that way you can really create the business that's authentic to you and is of value to someone else, right?
Yes.
Because then in the questioning and the doubting, you get lost in the humdrum of it all. And for me, the first step in that journey is to really know thyself, right? Like personal development, really understanding what creates inspiration for you. Now, inspiration isn't always like, oh, I'm going to go, to a big, huge event or convention in Vegas that's being ran by these 10,000 amazing people. Inspiration could be going for a walk. In that moment, you need to make a decision, go for a walk, instead of piling on the thoughts that can overwhelm you. So for me, really knowing who you are and the process that works best for you is the only way to confidently know that as you move towards in your business, mistakes are going to be made, but that's okay. It shouldn't be what destroys you, right? It should be I failed at that, I'm going to move forward. And also, it really supports you in this burnout thing, right? A lot of entrepreneurs talk about burnout all the time, or that other word, the imposter syndrome. Is that what it's called? Imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you're in that space, how do you confidently pull yourself back in? And it's just looking at, okay, these are the things I'm good at, right? Like I am dyslexic with numbers. I'm never going to be like, I'm my own accountant. And I can look at myself and be like, okay, it's okay not to be the best in numbers, but I can find someone who is. And that's the other thing, right? When you're starting to create a team, how do you know who to involve as your team? To the same degree that there's 10,000 businesses, there's 10,000 accountants. So then if you know yourself, you can ask the right questions towards that person and say, oh, they were a good fit.
Right.
So to me, that's personal power.
Oh, I love that. There's so many pieces to this that we could just talk about forever. This is such yummy territory. So thy own self be true, right?
Yeah.
Being true to yourself. Know what your strengths are. Know what your weaknesses are. Know where you need support. Know where you, like, this is my sweet spot.
Right.
It reminds me of, like, we need to be able to, in our businesses, in our own lives, hold the reins, hold the reins on the things that we know are true and the direction that we're going, the vision that we have and where we want to go.
Absolutely.
And yet at the same time, what I'm hearing you say is, like, you need to be able to, like, know yourself. It's
right.
An inward journey.
Absolutely. So there's this process that businesses use. It's called a SWOT analysis. It's abbreviated as strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Okay. And the first two is strengths and weakness is an internal version. And then the threats and opportunities is an external look at your business, right? In the corporate world, they use that system often when they're coming up with new ideas or, expanding. bringing in new products or services. And I think that we can also use that in our personally for us as entrepreneurs, especially when you're a solopreneur. You can just solopreneur your own SWOT analysis.
Yes, I love that. That's great. That's a great reminder. And that could be carried over to, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs as well.
Yeah.
And, help us stay on track, right?
Absolutely.
So when you and I were talking, you were so passionate about talking about, we have the power to mold our world, right? Right.
Yep.
We have the opportunity to make a conscious effort to create, the life that we want, the life that we love, in our workplace and home. Tell us more about that. Tell us more about your vision for that in the realm of personal strength.
Well, one of the things I love statistics. I am not, again, I just want to reiterate that some of my statistics may be a little bit not on the right numbers because, again, I'm dyslexic with numbers, but a huge portion of our economy is built from small businesses.
Yes.
So if that's the case, and we are all small business owners, and we are part of this huge engine of economy, then we have to know, you have to have power in that portion that you hold, right? Because if we were just going with the flow and moving with the water, which is a need also, right, then we lose ourselves in growing. Because that's the thing about personal strength, is that as you expand your business, as your business grows, when you're in this small scale, it's like you can control everything. You're like, oh, I've got everything handled. I've got the dates and times I want to do this. But then when you start growing and things start becoming more out of your control, and you haven't really harnessed your personal power, that's burnout. You start making decisions that are not good for your business, and that's not good for you. Then you start to spread your investments thin, right? Then it's like, now you're spending money in areas you're not sure the return of that investment is going to be good, but you're just going to do it anyways because that's what you've been doing. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, you're also having to be responsible for your investments. Your money needs to have a return. Your time, your energy, your money, we're in a business, right? Although it's our passion, it's still a business, no matter how you look at it.
Right. So building a foundation for your business is important.
Absolutely.
Also being able to, have a vision for where it's going and have the tools to get you there. Because sometimes there's this huge gap. We build our business and we know enough to be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And we need to be able to bring in the right people, the right resources, and the right tools at the right time to be able to scale and grow our business to support itself.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest problems small business faces is funding, right? We're usually self-funded, or we're funded by our families and friends, right? There's really small resources of funding. I mean, with this whole COVID thing, there's been some funding from Small Business Association and banks, but somebody's paying for those loans.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to end up paying for that. So we're not free and clear from having to pay an additional amount of taxes. And as a small business owner, we have to really take that into account, right? And that's sort of what segues into my next pillar, is that personal responsibility, right? Personal responsibility to me is really about choice. We have the power to create choice. Like, we need to work on our business more so than in our business, because then we create better choices for ourselves and the way it's growing, right? So whenever I have asked women, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 2-year plan? It's usually skewed where it's like, I have a plan next month. I have a plan next week. Well, that doesn't really benefit you long term. I mean, being a small business and being an entrepreneur is about sustainability. Like, when I ran my brick and mortar, I had 2 choices. I'm a mother of 3, and my husband and I had, about 7 years in, we had to make a choice. Like, does one of us get a job, like a job, that has insurance, because As a
Sure.
small business owner, you have to pay for that yourself. Or do we become rebels and renegades in our industry and create a different style of business and keep doing what we're doing,
So
right?
be disruptors.
Right. And it was a really tough choice, but both of us decided that we were gonna make this work, and we were gonna parent and run a business and keep a household and pay our bills all from one idea, and we're gonna see how that works. And it worked for 23 years. I mean, our kids were a part of our business.
Yeah.
Everything we've owned has been funded by the business we created. But it really had to start from this place of being responsible for our choices. Because
Yeah.
there were times where we made some really big mistakes. You know, $2,000 may not seem like a lot, but it is when you have nowhere else you're going to get that.
Right. Right. But you learned a lot. We learned from our
Right.
mistakes.
Absolutely.
And that's one
So,
thing that as a small business owner, initially we think we don't want to make any mistakes. Well, it's
right.
okay to make mistakes. It's just learn from them.
Right, right. And that's, I think, what pushes the envelope of that comfort zone, right? There's a lot of conversations about, oh, getting out of your comfort zone. As an entrepreneur, that's like day to day. That's like every decision you make is uncomfortable.
Right. And a leader too, right? Leaders need to be outside their comfort zone. So whatever platform we're using, whether it's our small business or if we're leading organizations like you and I, we need to be able to step outside our comfort zone because that's really where the growth occurs.
Right. And for me, the thing I learned really early on as a business owner that I think is very there's not enough conversation about it is we were 23 years old. We had no idea.
Mhm.
Like we had zero clue what we were doing. All we had was energy and time and tons of passion. And one of the things we did really early on was find mentors
Mm,
and coaches within our industry.
beautiful.
I mean, you cannot ever think that that is not a need because your growth is reliant on people who have been successful in the area that you're in. Like
Yep.
your industry, there's successful people in your industry all over the place. Find them, get with them, reach out to them. We decided to invest a portion of our income towards this process, and it's really what sustained us for long term because there's times you just don't know what you like. Oh, I don't know what I should do next.
Right.
And if you don't have anybody to reach out to that has had success or failure in that area, then you're left to your own vice, right? Then again, that to me is I think there's not enough importance in that conversation of as an entrepreneur, you've got to find yourself mentors and coaches.
You
It's
don't
important.
know what you don't know, right?
Right, right. And
And the
there's people
people,
out there that know more than you in your
yes.
industry that are always willing to help, right? Always willing to be a support and an ear and advice.
Yes, and
So,
that's what I love about these conversations to connect because it's true. We need these reminders. We've all heard this, but there's different times in our business when we hear it just at the right time to be able to take us to the next level. Um, we do have opportunities to learn vicariously from each other. So, just a few minutes ago, we said it's okay to make a mistake. And I always told my kids this. It's like, it's okay. Don't be hard on yourself. We all make
yeah,
mistakes. Here's the challenge. Learn
right,
from them.
right,
Don't keep making the same mistake over and over again. And so when we are able to learn from others, we can learn vicariously and we don't
right.
have to make the mistakes. They made the mistakes. They're telling us about the roadblocks. So
In this community too. So one of the other challenges that entrepreneurs have faced forever, for as long as entrepreneurship has been around, is isolation, right? Because you're
mhm,
in your business alone a lot.
yes,
And when I mean, you can call your friend and say, oh my gosh, I'm having a really rough day, but they work in a different industry. They'll hear you and they'll understand, but they don't know how to support you. So you have to have other entrepreneurs as well, because only other entrepreneurs know what the struggle is, right? And
yes.
you can really communicate with. So these types of communities are vital, vital. I mean, I can't stress that enough. That is such a vital space as an entrepreneur to have.
Well,
And thank you for that, Cyndi. You create that.
well, that's my passion too, just like yourself. So, here's the thing that, I'm just really present to right now in our conversation is we each have a sphere of influence and
Mm-hmm.
that we're investing in, even if it's our family,
Mm-hmm.
or our business, for exceptional connections, for you, for your women business owners. And we all have the privilege of showing up, right? I
Mm-hmm.
love that you and I were talking about that and you brought that up. To lead with grace and confidence through that. So share with us the power of showing up in a community and being able to make a difference in that community.
Okay, so this is a really big one because it kind of showed up when the Super Bowl debacle happened. Do you all remember the Super Bowl situation where everybody had an opinion about Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, right?
Yeah.
Their halftime performance. Everyone had, and for me, what social media, it's not very regulated, right? It's a very new platform and there's not a lot of regulations in it, and anybody could say whatever they want and nobody can, you just delete them or unfriend them. Well, to the same truth that we have the freedom of speech, as an entrepreneur you've signed up to lead someone. That's just the truth. Even if it's one person, you are an influence to that one person. And when you show up in a very opinionated, narrow environment, it's okay to feel that way, to think that way. But you got to be careful how you're putting it out there because people follow you. You encourage conversation, you encourage, the direction in which you are either having your strong opinion or having whatever emotion that you're putting out there. And I think that as leaders, we have to check ourselves before we put ourselves out there to say, how am I caring for the people who are listening to me? And because on the other side of being an entrepreneur is service, right? You are a leader and you are in service always. How are you serving by creating conversations that might not be healthy, right? There's healthy conversations and there's unhealthy conversations. You have to decide what that is as an entrepreneur. You have to decide how you show up on a regular basis. And to some people, they might think like, well, I can say whatever I want. Absolutely. But never, ever forget, leadership requires you at a higher level. You are here and you need to take responsibility for the fact that you are here, and how you show up matters. No matter if you think nobody's listening, everybody has at least 8 friends on there. Somebody's listening. Take that seriously.
Yeah, having understanding. No, I love that because it's true. Having that understanding of the accountability that is part of being a leader, whether, as an entrepreneur, even as a solopreneur, you make a difference. So I have this visual right now of dominoes. So, you click one domino and they all go do, 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 do.
Yeah.
Or even the ripple effect, you throw a stone out and there's this ripple effect. So we're all energy. What we do does have a ripple effect. What we say has a ripple effect. And, we're wanting to have an evergreen conversation here, but you can't do that in a bubble. We have COVID. We're still at shelter in place right now, hopefully for the just next couple of days here in Washington. And then we've had, rioting and
there's been a lot of tension.
A lot.
Everywhere.
In the world.
And as a leader, and as a leader, it's your responsibility to really understand your place in how you show up. I think that's important. So, and it's a great segue into my next pillar, which is personal freedom. So to me, personal freedom is always, being an entrepreneur, we've got to challenge our thoughts, right? Challenge what we think, because we all have come from a particular background, a particular upbringing, and we've been raised in sort of our own perception. Well, business requires you to be in conversation with a variety of people, a variety of backgrounds, a variety of ideas, a variety of, perceptions. And when you're moving in a direction towards your business, you really should stop and think like, should I do that? Hold on, let me think about it. So, and I say that because the business I owned was a martial arts school, and martial arts is very embedded in tradition and its rules, and you don't ever cross other disciplines. You are trained in one discipline and that's it, right? You have a master that oversees that, and then you have like the masters of masters that oversee the masters. Well, as I said, as we were growing in business, I thought we have to expand. We have to be able to also offer different disciplines. It was not received well at first. Like, no way, you don't do that. That's not what you do. Why? Why don't we? Right? Just because we are born into this world doesn't mean that we have to stay the way it is. It is again, I always bring up this word responsibility, and it's sort of our duty as entrepreneurs to push the envelope, in our industry. Would Apple be Apple if that wasn't the case? There's a ton of case studies out there of individuals pushing the envelope that has changed the very landscape of the world we live in. So
disruptors.
Absolutely.
Yep,
that's kind of our other title.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs / disruptors.
Right, exactly.
In your industry. And I think when you put all of that together, right, when you have your personal power and you're always learning about yourself, and you have this personal responsibility, and you're being mentored by other successful people, and then you are this renegade in your business, that is a perfect storm of a brand new idea in the industry that's been around forever, right? So I kind of just want to bring up, before all of this, when Chuck was talking about how he loves to cook, and he was a chemist, and he has like 38 ingredients, and some people think that's crazy, but it's good. Does it, so does it really matter what we think has to be the ideal when there could be something beautiful that comes out of it? And that is what we do as entrepreneurs all the time. We're constantly bringing in something new, a new idea. We have to be innovative, right? Innovative is a big word for entrepreneurs. You have to be innovative. Even if you're in direct marketing and your company offers a lot of the marketing materials, you yourself have to be innovative in how you create energy for your teams and things like that. So I think the combination of all three really exemplifies the leader that I've always strived for. Right.
That's beautiful. Well, the importance of bringing yourself to the recipe, and again, using that analogy of the, 38 ingredients, how those ingredients are put together. Like if you put all kinds of random things together, it might not be so good. Right. It's how, the right amount at the right time.
Yes.
Nothing overpowering each other. So that's a beautiful analogy of how we are to bring ourselves to the, the program, bring the ingredients we have, the background we have, know that we're, we can and do make a difference in the world, each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
So share with us a little bit about, how women, it's important for us not to underrepresent ourselves in the world, and to really deserve a place at the table. Because that's something that men might listen to and think, well, just take the chair, sit in it.
So there's this really great book that came out a few years ago by I think she's the COO of Facebook, and her name is Sheryl Sandberg. She wrote a book called Lean In. And the first part of the book talks about how men never need to feel qualified to do something. They just do it because they want to. Women feel like we need to be qualified in an area in order for us to move forward. And when I read that, I remember thinking like, oh, I get it, right? I totally understand what that means. And I think that's something that we women need to really process in our brain when we're moving forward, is to get out of the conversation of could, should, would, and risk taking, no matter what it is. If it's jumping off the side of a bridge with a rope tied to you, which is insane. I mean, risk pushes you to a place that is very uncomfortable and has a lot of discomfort, and you never know you don't have a clear end goal. You could sit here and say, by Q4 my goal is to be at 30%, blah blah blah, but that you never really know if where you're going to hit that, or if you're going to miss, or if you're going to oversee that goal. So why put ourselves through the process to begin with that struggle first? Just write it down, have a plan, talk to somebody about it that is also successful in that area, then move, right? And I think as women, we have too much conversation in our brain about what potentially could happen.
Right.
And that potential, the potential of making a mistake, we put too much energy into, instead of like, if it is a mistake, oh well. Because men on the other side think that way all the time. Like, I'm going to give it a try. If I mess up, oh well, try something else, right? So it takes more intention and conscious thought. Like, I don't know how many times I talked to my husband about, okay, we should do this. And he'd just be like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, no, but we should really talk about this. And he's like, no, let's just give it a try. I'm like, are you sure? And he would be he'd say, well, yeah, if the 800 flyers doesn't, work out, we'll just flip it over and write on the
That's funny.
And to me, I'm thinking of it as like, oh, am I investing on something it's going to be wasteful? So I think in order for us to lean in a little bit harder is to, again, we have to know ourselves a little bit more, because some people are more analytical, right?
Yes.
So if that's the case and you have to write everything down first and have it on a spreadsheet, do so, but don't spend too much time in it, right? Or if I'm the type of woman that just like, oh, spontaneously always combusting, know that also, and have somebody to talk to say, hey, I've got this idea and I think I'm going to try it in 2 minutes. Let's talk about it first, right? That way we're never at a loss of whether we're being paralyzed in the choice or being too risky.
Right.
So for us, we just need that. We need that balance as women.
Well, and again, the way you get that balance, that what I'm hearing from you, and I just want to take this to heart, and as we wrap up this conversation, is it comes back again to knowing yourself.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
knowing, okay, I pulled the trigger really fast, and so my check is I need to like sleep on it, or by somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Where if you're somebody who researches things thoroughly, but nothing ever gets done because you're ready, then you need somebody to kick you in the rear, and get
somebody you trust. Yeah,
somebody you
sure.
trust. Right. So I've got a little story here, and this is my my truth telling time here. So I'm growing a garden, and it's growing really beautifully, and I don't have to have anybody say, you have to go out there, because it calls me to itself, right? I just love going out in my garden and planning what's coming next and how to tend to it and what the next steps is, even when I'm just walking through the garden or harvesting some lettuce. But I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, I had some deadlines of things that I had to do for my business, and they were taking precedence over planting my tomato plants. So my little tomato plants that I bought, or that I was able to procure were just very healthy and very beautiful. And I plant my tomatoes on their side so they grow up, and they were just thriving and doing really well. And then I went out there one day and they were not doing well. And I was like, oh, I killed them. I left them out there too long. Oh my gosh. And I was really hard on myself, and but I kept procrastinating. And I had this little, I call it your ego or your drunk monkey was saying, oh, you're not very nurturing, you're a failure, and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it's just, I know that I was procrastinating doing what I want to do because I had other things that were taking priority. I was waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. And I was just getting really bogged down where it wasn't something I wanted to do. It was something that I should be doing. There's that S word that you were mentioning, right?
Yeah. And
so I finally just one day said, okay, I feel stuck. I need to get out of this. And I'm using my garden analogy, but I think it's something that we can use, hopefully other business owners relate to it in some way in their business. So I was like, okay, what can I do to move this forward? Because I'm very discouraged and feeling overwhelmed right now. So I went out there one day and I measured my tomato plants and put a little stake and cleared the bark. And that's all I did that day. And then I noticed the next day, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna, gather my things and start planting them. And even if I just plant one plant today or two plants, and it gives you synergy energy, right? That we were talking about earlier. So what I remembered is there's a difference between having a task and a project. So I'm kind of going off tangent here, forgive me. But a task is when we forget the difference between the two. So a task is we have one thing to do. We have to, I don't know, clean a window, clean one window, And so we get the supplies out and we do that one thing. Versus the project is, I'm cleaning the windows on my whole house, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a difference in terms of energy and focus and preparation. And so even though I was just planting my tomatoes, there's a lot of steps to planting your tomatoes. Mm-hmm. You had to measure it out, clear the chips away, dig the hole, get the ingredients, put the Epsom salt and so when I stopped and just took myself through the process of doing things one step at a time, it actually was, I couldn't wait to get the last step done. And now the project is done. And I'm happy to report my tomato plants are doing well.
Yay!
So we need to give ourselves as business owners permission to, be able to understand, like, what is it we are good at? What is it we're not good at? What do we need to delegate? What do we need to, have other people do? What's in our wheelhouse? What do we need to take personal responsibility of? I'm just, reviewing the amazing, the wonderful guiding principles that you've given us, taking, personal responsibility, using the strength that we have to take responsibility for that. And then the freedom to be able to do what we really love doing in our business, but have gotten bogged down because we're feeling like we're not doing it well or right or at the right time. And to claim that power back by breaking it into steps, right? Yeah. That empower us, that, that draw us to that thing that we want to do instead of the opposite. So I hope I didn't take us too much off track on that one, but to me, that's
your garden is a great analogy of entrepreneurship, actually.
Well, it is. And that there's things that you want to do and you're excited about in your businesses. And then there's things it's just grunt work, and it's just got to get done. And if it doesn't get done, there's going to be a consequence. And for gardening, the consequence is killing something out there, which no one wants to do. It happens, but
I know.
So any closing thoughts here? Wonderful. Before we open it up for our listeners to be able to interact and ask questions.
So my closing thought is that in order for all of these principles for me that have come full circle, is the best way to gauge and to scale where you're at in your leadership is to teach or mentor someone else. Always. Like that's the only way you'll know where you're at and what you need sharpening more of and what you need to chisel away from, right? Is to be able to teach it to someone else or to mentor someone else. Because without that, I think it was Picasso that said it, is the purpose of life is to give your gifts away.
Yes.
Right? The purpose, and I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yes.
You have to be able to give away the gift that you possess. Yes. On a regular basis. It sharpens you, it creates inspiration, it motivates you. And if you weren't giving away the things that were growing in your garden, it wouldn't be as fulfilling, because then nobody would know how amazing of a gardener you were, because we wouldn't know the flavor of your zucchini or the flavor of your tomatoes. And you're in your own world of solidarity.
Well, but that's part of the beauty of it, because like I plant a lot more squash than we can eat.
Oh, that's it. It was squash, not zucchini.
My husband, no, it was squash zucchini. My husband's like, do we really need that many squash plants? And I'm like, yes, because I love being able to give out of the abundance of our garden and out of the abundance of our, our businesses to share. So it reminds me of the law of contribution. So the law of contribution states that the level of your success and happiness is in direct proportion to the number of people you serve selflessly.
Absolutely. I get behind that statement. Like, I want it tattooed on me. I don't like tattoos. It hurts. But we should give Chuck some of your zucchini and see what he can come up with this pretty.
Oh, I know. Well, let's go ahead and I want to make sure we add this piece and don't miss it. So wonderful. Just before we open things up, and Rakshana, if you want to unmute everybody, you can. But tell us how our listeners, so we're going to have this on our Exceptional Connections playlist for Conversations to Connect. For those who are listening to it live or on the replay, how can they get to work with you and get to connect with you and get to know you better?
You can't. No, I'm kidding. You can. So I have a Facebook group. It's called LeadHER Community. And I also have a business page, LeadHER Mindset Coaching. And you can email me at morrison.wonderful@gmail.com, or you can text me. I mean, I put out my phone number. I'm not the best answer of caller person. I'm way better at text. So it's 206-818-8611 if you want to chat it up with me about being an entrepreneur. And
wonderful. Yeah. And be a part of your community, which you have a wonderful group of entrepreneurs.
I do.
So let's open it up. So anybody this is an opportunity for you to share your ahas, your epiphanies, as you've been listening to this conversation. Feel free to chime in.
Anybody?
Well, I always have a comment. So, yeah, I think that one of the things that you pointed out was that, entrepreneurs are problem solvers. That's their key skill.
Right.
And when they do the problem solving, they actually innovate. It's a natural outflow. Yeah. So innovation is there all the time with entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I think that part of that too is that when it happens though, because it's so new, and I'm only speaking because as a woman entrepreneur, I'm pretty sure my husband would totally answer this differently. But when I think about, oh yeah, that's a great, but then I get kind of like, oh, hold on, wait, is that good innovation? Is it bad innovation? And I think that's the thing that kind of is always playing its role in my mind is to the same degree that problem solve, then I get bogged down with the 8,000 questions I ask myself within that space of innovation.
See, that's why you should, like you mentioned about leaning in, that's why it's so important, I think, especially for women.
Yeah.
Because you have the genius to do it. You just have to believe in yourself.
Yes.
So if there's 8 things out there, pick one and go for it.
Yes. Right? I love that. I agree.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I love the end there. The purpose of life is to find our gift and then at the end to give it away. I thought that was so fitting, and it's so true. Like, we're using all our experiences, everything we've learned, and we're teaching others, we're helping others. We have people who we come in contact with, we are always sharing that value and that wealth and stuff. So that's just a great reminder that we're, as entrepreneurs, that's where we are. We're sharing our value with other people.
Absolutely. I mean, I learned that because I started a business in my 20s, and when you're in your 20s, everything is about you. And 5 years in, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with how I serve other people. And that was a big aha moment. And I think I was like 26 or something. And I just remember thinking, how come nobody ever talks about that? Because if I had known sooner that I'm in the business of serving, I might have made different choices earlier, right? But you learn through the process. So
beautiful. But that's part of your journey. That's not, now you can share that with the next generation of entrepreneurs. I wish I had learned this sooner, and they can be able to benefit. So nothing's lost.
2 of my 3 kids are entrepreneurs. They're all adults now. And two out of 3 of them are entrepreneurs, and and it's a very interesting, watching them through it, seeing them, and they never ask me. I'm like, come on, we live in the same house, what's the deal? But it's because it's mom.
Sometimes we're too close.
Yeah, for sure. So I love these communities because I do find people for them to talk to that I think would be a good fit for them. Because otherwise, how would they know, right? So I love these communities that I belong to, because there's somebody in this community that could serve one of them in their endeavor.
Yes. Yes, we all have spheres of influence and people we can draw on.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you, Wonderful. So you are in the business of empowering women. If you could wave a magic wand and tell men, if you could, what would you have men do that would support women in being empowered?
Oh my gosh, that's a great wand. I feel like I've been holding that for 20 years.
I've been waving the wand and nothing's been happening.
Finally have some listeners here.
My magic wand would say, we don't bring things to surface for a solution. We bring things to surface for discussion.
Well, shut up and listen.
Yeah, but discuss it, right? Because I don't think that silence is an answer either. In that the first 5 years of building a business together with my husband, there were some serious battles, and it was because he was always trying to solve the problem that I was having. And finally we got to this space of this is not why I bring it up. I just need to talk it out. I just need to process this idea, and I just need you to listen and kind of be in agreement. And if you're not in agreement, don't be so strong about the disagreement.
Or encouragement, right?
Right. So that was a real big learning space in how men and women are, because that's like what Chuck was saying, as an entrepreneur, problem solvers. But the way I think, I have to you know, process the thought. And my husband just always had an answer to it. He's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. And sometimes I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. And other times I was like, whoa, that's not why I brought it up. I want to think it through.
Yeah.
And then we took a break from working with each other for a year. And then that's where we learned that the way we communicate. So that's my magic wand would be, don't problem solve. Let's talk it through together.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're all different learners and we have different ways, you know, if you're a verbal processor, you process things in there. So there's so many dynamics. It's not just a male-female issue, right? There's so many, if you look at the Myers-Briggs or the DISC, I mean, there's different types and we're all so different.
Yeah.
But the ability to be able to listen.
I think that because innately men have a need to protect, right? It goes straight to, oh, I see a problem. I want to protect it. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just an innate desire. Like I remember when my son was 3 years old and I would yell something in the kitchen. There was this one time I cut my fingernail instead of my hand and I yelled out loud and he came running into the kitchen like, Mom, are you okay? My 2 daughters heard it. They didn't have the same initial reaction as my son did. And so I saw really early on just the difference in the need like innately for him to protect his mom. So when I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay, this is just how men naturally show up. So it was never on bad intention. I just needed that one at the moment to be like, shut it. Don't,
listen.
Don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Very fun. So anybody else have any other epiphanies or ahas or want to enter into the conversation as we bring it to a close here? Well, I want to thank you, Wonderful, for taking the time to share with us today and to remind us as entrepreneurs how we do have personal responsibility and we have opportunities to really, you know, be rooted in our, you know, the mission of who we are and in making a difference in the world. And that reminder of being rebellious, right? And being able to be disruptors, because that's who you're right. And I mean, that's my takeaway from this conversation, amongst lots of notes that I've written here, is, you know, as entrepreneurs, we do have the opportunity, and I'm calling it an opportunity to be disruptors in our community, in our families, to make a difference in the world. And thank you for being a pioneer in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I really, really appreciate this opportunity to share my passion. And, you know, the opportunity to meet new people is always so much fun for me because this isolation thing is literally making me crazy. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I need human connection. I mean, I survived the first month, but this second month push is a little bit, it's difficult. So thank you so much for showing up and thank you for allowing me to share myself and to connect with you all and to get to know you better. So.
Well, it's our pleasure. As we started at the beginning of the conversation, you spent the first month being able to shine the spotlight on 30 women, 30 days. You gave them 30 minutes to share their expertise in your May master classes. And I just thought it was really appropriate to be able to turn the flashlight on you, and be able to have you really shine and share your journey with everybody. So thank you. Thank you.
I do want to say that I am continuing with our weekly video series. So if there's anybody else who wants to share their expertise on my page, I'd love to interview you because there's nothing more fun than sharing is caring.
Nice, nice. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being on the call. For those of you on the call, thank you for your questions. Thanks for engaging with us. And for those on the replay, appreciate you sharing our Conversation to Connect, Let's Get Real playlist and subscribing. So thank you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.